So it's a reminder, let's not wait till tragedy or disaster hits before we help each other. We should we should be more mindful of that. And this is a lesson learned, and I share this with young people. You got to have connections. You got to network. You got to have mentoring. Guess what? I finally got on the phone and called friends I went to law school. Ron Mendoza, Judge Orlando Garcia, Mike Granados. And they were already, Ron and Mike were already in the DA's office. And I go, can you help me get a job? They literally come right now where there's an opening. I had a job offer right then and there. You're not going to win. You're an Asian and you're in the Hispanic community. But that speaks to San Antonio. That speaks to our community about the diversity, the embracement of culture. And that's the reason why I love this community, and that's the reason why I'm your county judge.
Our sponsor for this episode is the law firm of Ortiz McKnight, an elite group of land use lawyers and government relations lawyers who know their way around San Antonio, know the levers of power where they are, and guys who know how to affect change. Thank you, Daniel Ortiz. Thank you, James McKnight, for sponsoring this episode.
Another episode of Guayabera Conversations with Manny Pelaez and my co-host, Daniel Ortiz, owner of the Ortiz McKnight Law Firm, joins me, and we gang up on Bexar County Judge Peter Sakai. Fascinating conversation about leadership, about the pressures of having to make difficult decisions, but also fun. We got to find out about how terrible a student he was in law school. We got to find out about how he worked at Foley's department store. You may even hear that he had long hair. We talk about family. We talk about love of our city. We talk about the future. We talk about the past. Possibly one of my favorite conversations of all time. All right, today, Guayabera Conversations episode, we are joined by my really good friend, Daniel Ortiz, and my really good friend, County Judge Peter Sakai. Now, before we start, I want to brag on Daniel. I said, Daniel, I want to have Peter Sakai on, and I need a tag team because Peter's brain is way too big for me to keep up with. And so we're going to be attacking you from both sides, Peter.
Right,
is that okay?
I'm ready.
But, you know, for those of you that don't know Daniel, Daniel is just like you and like me, Peter. He could not get into medical school. So he got to go to law school, right? And he went to UT, just like you, right? And now he owns and operates his own practice, Ortiz McKnight. And we got to meet your law partner the other day, James. But just a little bit about your firm. You guys do land use law. What is that? What does that even mean?
Land use, from a practical perspective, it just essentially means all the approvals that you need at the local level to build whatever it is you want to build, or develop the land as you want to develop it.
So my kids asked me, and I told them, I was like, any building you see around here or any property that's been purchased around here or developed around here, Daniel probably has his fingerprints on it, in the form of the contracts and the permits and the zoning. And, you know, everybody is an expert in, forensic files and law and order and all that. But what nobody realizes is that the lawyers who actually make things happen more than any other lawyer, I think, is the land use lawyer that nobody ever really gets to meet. And so, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Now your job, and I hope you get this right, man, is to introduce this man and let everybody know who he is and how he got here. Good luck.
Just say the short version, Daniel, all right? Otherwise, we'll be done by the time you finish.
Well, what I'd like to do, because that is a big task, is have the introduction be a little bit of a conversation, actually.
Okay.
Good enough.
And so, yes, your personal story, Judge, your grandparents immigrated here. I'm not too sure that that's well known, from Japan, and you grew up, as I understand it, largely in South Texas.
Rio Grande Valley.
Let us know how your family got to South Texas and what it was like growing up in South Texas.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, Daniel, as we open up this podcast, because the immigrant story, my immigrant story, and the respect I give my grandparents, both sets of grandparents came from Japan, and obviously they came to the United States for the same reason immigrants are coming now. They wanted to come to establish their family. They wanted to establish their fame, their fortune. They were just hardworking folks that were just looking for jobs. And so over 100 years ago, they came to the United States and eventually settled in the Rio Grande Valley because they were farmers, both sets of my family. Now, it's interesting, the immigrant story then is no different than the immigrant story now. They were told to go back home
Mm.
where they came from. They were barred by law to own property. They faced discrimination, especially during the outbreak of World War II, when my father and my paternal grandparents were interned in internment camps because they were only because they were Japanese Americans. And the United States obviously was at war with Japan. And so I give great dignity and respect to my grandparents and my parents who never would have believed that I, as a Japanese American, would be the county judge of Bexar County, a predominantly Hispanic majority population. In fact, I was told when I ran for judge, you're not going to win. You're an Asian and you're in a Hispanic community. But that speaks to San Antonio. That speaks to our community about the diversity, the embracement of culture. And that's the reason why I love this community. And that's the reason why I'm your county judge.
Where in Japan? Hold on a second. Where in Japan did your grandparents come from?
They came from the southern island of Kyushu.
Okay.
My father's side came from the Hiroshima prefecture, which is like a state. And my maternal grandparents, my mother's parents, came from Kagoshima, which is where it's next to Kumamoto. So that is the farming community of Japan. And so that's the reason why they came over. They wanted access to land. They wanted access to farm. They wanted opportunity. And God bless them because of the values they gave me. I'm the county judge, and so that's the reason why the sky's the limit. And I have a very difficult time for those that believe that immigrants don't give our country great contribution and benefit.
So, in thinking more about that, just introducing you as a person, not necessarily the county judge yet. I've read that your father's experiences, in particular in the internment camps, really fueled you going to law school. Heavy stuff, to put it lightly. Can you share any of those
Yeah.
stories that he shared with you?
Well, it's an interesting. I'm a baby boomer. I don't know if you guys are close to that, but
My kids call me boomer, but I think that's just something different, doesn't it?
which means as a kid, a teenager, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I remember those times, which is really to a certain degree not much different than perhaps current times
Right.
in regards to civil rights and the way we treat minorities and people of color. And so my dad was very conservative. He had a crew cut. I was punished if I allowed my hair to grow long. He was a very conservative fellow, and I was a very liberal fellow. So we had very little mutual discussions. In fact, I was told to shut up and only talk when you're given permission to. And when I didn't do that, there usually was a punitive response. So getting to that story, that was one story that my father made sure I knew. He talked about the internment camp. He took me to the internment camp in Poston, Arizona, a godforsaken old cavalry military base where he and his parents were moved to when he was a teenager. And so when we went there, I think it was 1971, Neil station wagon on a trip to California to go visit my California cousins and uncles and aunts. He wanted to make sure. And we went to this place that had it was just vacant because of the length of time. There was no remnants of the internment camp. And he made sure that he understood that they were ordered off their property, ordered to take all their possessions within a week's notice, board a train, report to post in Arizona, and then were put into horse stalls that were then converted into family units. And he wanted me to understand that circumstance. He didn't necessarily advocate it from a civil rights and the deprivation of constitutional rights, but it was a story he embraced into me. And so as a young man, although he believed in very conservative values, he was supportive of the Vietnam War. He hated my long hair. He didn't like.
Wait, you had long hair?
Yeah, I had long hair.
How long?
Too long for my dad's, but
Because Daniel is so jealous. Look, he doesn't have much hair.
It hit the shoulders.
Oh my gosh.
Well, let's put it this way. My dad introduced me when I was a teenager that he had two brothers and one sister, and then it modified with my long hair that he had two daughters
I see.
and two sons. And so obviously he did not like that. But that was one story that ingrained to me the rule of law. It ingrained to me that we live with a constitution that we must always preserve and protect. And by the way, as a county judge, I take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. That's the reason why, as a district court judge, I'm very mindful of rule of law. And I really believe that we're living in some challenging times because we are pushing the limits, so to speak, on our Constitution. And we really got to get back to rule of law.
So that gets you to UT. You go there for your undergrad and law school. So you pretty much bleed orange. You want to talk about that?
Right. Hook 'em horns all the way.
What was life like at UT campus during the late 70s?
Well, as I indicated earlier to you guys, when I reported to UT Law School, for one, I had no idea I would end up at UT Law. I had no mentoring. I had no direction. I had no Manny Pelaez or Daniel Ortiz saying, hey, this is how you do it. I just had a friend who said, hey, if you want to go to law school with me, you got to take a LSAT. I had no clue what that was. My friend actually bought me my workbook and goes, here, work it so that you can pass the exam. And I go, okay. Fortunately, I was able to get into UT Law. When I report for the first day of class, Daniel, I've looked around. There's about 500 students per class, 1,500 total in UT Law at that time. I was the only one, number one, solo one, as an Asian American.
Wow.
I further looked around and said, well, where's the Hispanics? Because I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley. I'm used to Hispanic. I'm used to Latinos, man. You know, there was only a handful. And there was even less African Americans, Black Americans. And so I had done well in school, had great grades. But then after my first year of law school, I nearly bombed out. And I really was discouraged. And the only person that probably kept me in UT Law School was Orlando Garcia. Judge Orlando, who was 1 year ahead of me, who I knew from undergraduate, UT Law, Hook 'em horns.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I don't belong here. There's nobody that looks like me. Everybody here has an uncle or a parent or a family member that is a law partner, federal judge. I ain't got nobody. And so I didn't feel like I belonged. And he just basically took me aside and says, you do belong. And all you got to do is finish school. I said, yeah, but I'm barely making the grades. But he convinced me to stick it out and finish. And I did. Now, as a result, my last 2 years of UT Law School was fun because I said, I ain't making law review. I ain't graduating at the top of my class. So I learned to play a lot of good softball. I joined the Chicano Law Students Association. And because I was from the Valley and because at that time fajitas was just the new thing, I was the cook for the Chicano Law Students fundraiser barbecue. And that was the hit of the UT Law School. And I ultimately got on the Student Bar Associate, and that's the start of my political career. I got on Student Bar Associate so that I could be in charge of the parties at UT. And we went from being a one keg party to 3. So you can imagine, we had great time at UT Law School. So that gives you a bit of flavor.
Right, it does. But also, I think it forecasts your career, right? Delivering wins for your constituents.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because I could tell you, I was one of the most popular student reps there because after one keg, it'd be over within an hour. Our parties went well into the late evening.
Now, what you don't know is that he was also in a fraternity.
No!
Go ahead,
man. That's one of the rules. We're not going to talk about those stories. No.
By the way, setting up this podcast, I got a call from his assistant, and she's like, "I need to know the topics that you will be discussing." And so, of course, I was like, "Okay, here's the topics we won't be discussing." And I listed them off. I said, "We're not going to be discussing federal, state politics, Project Marvel, or any of the other, hot provocative stuff. That's not why you were invited here." But I never listed the fraternity as a topic that's off limits. Wait a second. Brag about your fraternity. I know you're.
Well, it's Phi Kappa Theta.
That's right.
And it was the We weren't on Greek Row, okay? We weren't part of the Pan-Hellenic Council, the fraternities that are well established at UT. No, we were a Chicano law fraternity, mostly from South Texas, the entire South Texas. I was the token Asian.
Yeah.
And I fit right in because of my Valley connections. And I'll just say we had a lot of fun.
Well, what's interesting about this, Daniel, is that there's now a Phi Kappa Theta house over at UTSA,
That's right.
and they consider him the patron saint of the Phi Kappa Theta house on campus. And these are very active young men who are really just throw themselves at community service, and whatever Peter Sakai says, they do.
And I got to give a shout out because Judge Ron Rangel is a Phi Cap.
That's right.
Rudy Garza from CPS Energy is a Phi Cap. And Manny Pelaez is a Phi Cap.
That's right. I want a little more respect out of you from now on, Dan.
That's right. So,
Well, you'll get
so
it now.
Manny is
Now.
Manny's held in
Yeah,
high
that's right.
esteem by Judge Sakai.
That's right. That's right. I'm finally somebody.
South Texas,
Yeah.
your fraternity, student bar association,
Yeah.
you're bilingual,
But
right? In
Yeah.
Spanish.
I speak that Spanglish. They would say down in the valley, "Tu eres muy pocho."
That's right.
So if y'all know what that
But at
means.
least you know what they mean.
Oh, I knew the bad words from day one, and I can throw the bad words out, and I can chew the fat. And when people talk in Spanish, thinking I don't,
Watch out.
I know what people are saying, and that was very helpful as a district court judge when sometimes parents would get upset on my rulings in juvenile court because I
Yeah.
would chew out their kids for their in behavior. And so I had one lady go, "Este chino no sabe nada." And I said, Ahorita, perdóname. No, yo quiero respeto en mi corte."
That's
That
right.
is one of my
I think
favorite.
her mouth dropped to the floor and she just,
Yeah.
And so it helps.
She never
people.
forgot that.
She never forgot that.
That is one
And
of my favorite things when people are speaking Spanish in front of you, assuming that you don't speak Spanish, and you just jump into the conversation and the jaw hits the floor. That's the greatest.
and then when I use a pejorative Spanish slang term about what I think of you or your mental capacities.
You know what? That's another podcast. That's another podcast. Maybe we start what I really think of you, and then we invite Peter in, cuss him out in Spanish.
That was later in the So finished law school.
Yeah.
1979. You come to Bear County.
Came to Bear County, my first
DA's
job.
office. What
Yes.
got you to Bear County in particular?
It
Was
took-
a job.
It took a while for a job because, one, I graduated from UT Law School. As you heard, I didn't graduate at the top of my class. I was petrified that I wouldn't pass the bar exam. So I waited to take the bar, actually passed the bar exam on the first try, but I hadn't applied for a job. As you probably well aware, all the jobs were taken.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit for a year. I worked at Foley's at the mall in Austin. Now, I'll tell you
Whoa.
what, it wasn't a great legal job, but I got some great clothes and great shoes
Discounts.
at a pretty good discount. This is a lesson learned, and I share this with the young people. You got to have connections. You got to network. You got to have mentoring. Guess what? I finally got on the phone and called friends I went to law school, Ron Mendoza, Judge Orlando Garcia, Mike Granados, and they were already, Ron and Mike were already in the DA's office. And I go, "Can you help me get a job?" They literally come right now where there's an opening.
That's great.
I had a job offer right then and there
At the DA's office?
at the DA's office,
Wow.
mainly because they said, "Hey, this guy's a good guy." So there's a lesson for all of us to learn. We've got to rely on each other, and that's what I tell the young people: is that you got to engage, you got to network, you've got to be mentored and mentor in order so that you always pay it forward. And I think that's something, Manny, you do from day one. I'm sure it's ingrained.
My
in you.
grandfather used to tell me something very similar, but he also said that you don't just have to go and get connected and reach out, right? But also reach back, right? And pull people up with, with you, right?
Right.
Because your obligation is to return the favor to the universe that's being given to you. And so, and I've seen you do that with young people. And
Well, and it's part of to go fast forward, that's what I call servant leadership.
Yeah.
Remember where you came from. I came from a family that all they wanted me to do is go to college and get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm for sure know that my grandparents and my parents would have never dreamed that I would be a county judge. And I think that's what makes America great. And America is still great. And there's still great opportunity because I think I'm a living example since I started
Yeah.
back at UT Law School as the only Asian to now really one of the very few, or as you know, and we still can claim the title, we have 2 Asian Americans
Leading
the county,
region.
the city, and the whole nation. I think we're the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's Asians, West Coast, East Coast, but to have 2 elected officials in a Hispanic majority population, I think is unique, and I think speaks well for our community.
So you DA's office, you actually
Mhm.
put up your own shingle.
Put up for a Shigo about 10 years.
You
Did-
practiced solo for 10 years?
Solo for 10 years. Started obviously with court appointed work, criminal courts, did a lot of juvenile work, child protective services work, and then kind of morphed into a civil practice back then. Man, I don't know if you were in that 80, early 90s era where personal injury, you made a ton of money. And I did very,
Mhm.
very well with workers' compensation, personal injury cases,
Right.
and was blowing and going. And then I came to the situation where Judge Tom Rickoff made me a part-time associate judge in juvenile court. And I did that because that's just part of my passion. And then Judge Andy Morales, may he rest in peace, and Judge John Specia says, okay, we're going to open a brand new children's court, the Child Abuse and Neglect Court, and you're the person to take it. Quite frankly, I didn't want to take it because I was making so much money in private practice, in solo practice. But I was working 60, 70 hours of work. You probably know that, Daniel. And I knew that I had young children, and I knew that I was wanting not to sacrifice that for the family. So I went ahead and took the job and cut my pay in half to take the associate judge spot, appointed judge, and handle children's court. But as y'all well aware, that children's court is what set me on the course to be an elected district court judge of the 225th District Court. And then I retired, stepped down from that to be the county judge.
Who was your opponent in that first race?
In the 225th?
Yeah.
Maria Lynn Bernard.
Oh.
And in the general election, and Ralph Lopez, trial lawyer, in the primary, and Ralph Lopez, not the sheriff Ralph Lopez. And that's where I was told, Manny, you're not going to win.
Right.
And Judge Sakai, you're a hell of a guy. You're a great lawyer. You would make a great judge, but you'll never be a judge because you're an Asian.
Because you're an Asian. Well, you know, Marilyn Bernard is now, right? She's at
the
the
business court.
She's in that business court that was created by the legislature, but before that, she served on commissioner's court.
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah.
And she has done very well, and she's a gentle lady, so to speak. She's very professional.
Oh, I love that lady.
And she's a
very
very
nice.
smart attorney
Yeah.
and judge.
Yeah, she was a great commissioner too. She
Mhm.
did a great job.
You were on the bench as a judicial judge for how many years then?
26 years.
26 years. Elected county judge, took office January 2023.
Correct.
So before we get into that, you referenced your wife, kids, going through that entire process, growing a family. Tell us a little bit about what that life is like. People that don't think of you as county judge or actual judicial judge first.
Well,
Wife,
Yeah.
Rachel, of course.
Rachel
2
Sakai is my
children,
wife.
2 grandchildren.
Yeah. And I think that's where we have also common ties. Your wife is an educator, counselor, so
that's
is
right.
mine. And I'm sure your situation, Manny, is the same in mine. Rachel has been my life partner. She's been my rock. She's been my guiding light, so to speak. She keeps me in line, and she has helped me understand the needs of children, even to a greater extent, especially from educational and mental health.
Yeah.
And so it has been a wonderful partnership. We have 2 children. They're all adults. I've now 2 grandchildren and a third coming on the way. Actually, I have 4 with a step grandchild, so I don't want to omit that one. But we have worked very well together in the sense that we have stayed in that lane of children and families. So that's the reason why when people ask me, Judge, it's just that I've married up. I
Yeah.
assume you did too. I have great kids that I have done my very best to set the same path for them. My daughter's a lawyer in Harris County working for the public defender. My son is a project manager engineer down in Lake Jackson. They're doing very, very well. And so, Daniel, w- the, it's also a lesson for all of us that let's take care of our families, give our families that priority. And that's the reason why, even as county judge, I keep children and families as the number one priority when it comes to making political decisions as to how we expend our county taxpayer money. And so, children and families, my North Star, it'll always be and will continue to be who I am, what I am. And when people question my decisions I make, I do my very best to just say, is this the right thing to do for our community?
And so obviously this was happening while you're here in Bexar County.
Mhm.
Where in education? She teaching? Was
She
in
was
school
32
district?
years, 32 years in the Harlandale Independent School District, starting as a school teacher and got all the way up to be an administrator. I want to say third in line to the superintendent. She was a director of curriculum, I think. She's going to kick my butt that I don't remember the exact position. Then she actually did 3 to 4 years at Palo Alto in the Alamo College District, running a dropout retention recovery program.
Right.
And then I believe what she really enjoyed the best, she did 10 years at Providence Catholic High School with those Catholic girls as a school teacher, teaching journalism, English, Spanish. I think she taught them all. And
Spanish.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
she's a South Texas girl. She's from Laredo. And so mi suegras they all grew up in the capital, the DF, the Mexico. And so, yeah, that's where I don't claim to be truly bilingual because my mother-in-law would
Will correct
She's the
this.
real
correct
deal.
me and criticize me as to what proper Spanish was.
So that catches us up here.
Mhm.
How are you? Just
Yeah.
how are you doing now? What, almost 3 years into being the county judge? How are you doing just as a human being?
That's a great question, Daniel. People are always saying, "Are you having fun?" And initially I go, and I kind of just wouldn't answer it because it was like, I want to be truthful. And so what I've come to realize, and I know, Manny, you know this from your city council, your 8 years,
Yeah.
leadership is not always fun,
No.
but it is rewarding.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of satisfaction, and you kind of get a kick, a high when you get things done and you know that you have resolved an issue, whether it was a constituent or whether it was a policy or whether you got your council people together and help them understand why your position was the position to take. I get a high, and that happens often every day.
I'm smiling because, eh, you know, offline, I'll tell you this question was asked of me all 8 years. Oh, are you having fun? Are you having
Mhm.
fun? And at the beginning, I felt bad because I
Mhm.
wanted to tell them, yes, thank you for supporting me, and helping me get to this place of public service. Yes, I'm having fun, but the reality is the majority of the time is not fun,
It's not.
right? I mean, you're out there fighting like cats and dogs. People are like during COVID, Hurricane
Mhm.
Harvey, crime rates, domestic violence rates. There's nothing fun about it.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, you leave it all out on the field. And I've seen you leave. I've
Mhm.
seen you agonize over some really difficult decisions,
There have been tough
and you
cases.
feel rewarded knowing that today was a good day because you did everything you could to put people in a better place.
To give you an example, Daniel, don't know if I'm supposed to give a shout out, but I had dinner at Focasio's with good friends, just a private dinner. And it was a Friday evening. It was a work day. Got over there, and we were sitting there. And this lady, older lady, comes and puts her arm around me. And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And she goes, "Judge Sakai, you're my favorite judge." And I'm like, and that happens. I'm
Yeah,
sure people
sure.
go, "Manny, you're my favorite council person."
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. She goes, "No, no, you allowed me to adopt my daughter," which I believe was her granddaughter, who
Oh,
was
that's
a
right.
victim of domestic
You handle
violence.
adoptions too. That's
And
right.
so she wouldn't let me go. She goes, "Judge, you just don't know how much gratitude." And
Yeah.
this is all in front of Rachel. It's all in front of my friends. And at first, I was kind of like, okay, I'm eating. But of course, she was a chef. So I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm not going to upset her because
That's
the
the last
dinner
person.
entree was coming. I was like, no, go check on my meal here.
Right.
But she went on and on how difficult it was, but that she was forever indebted that I helped her as a judge to adopt. Because unfortunately, in the legal system, especially Child Protective Services, it can be very bureaucratic. There can be a lot of obstacles and hurdles for families, especially those that want to adopt their own family children. And so apparently, I didn't remember her. So I'll be honest with you. I mean, although I was not embarrassed, but it was just, at the end of the day, when we were home, Rachel made the comment. She goes, "That's why you are what you are. That's the reason why I feel that the community is so connected to me and gives me such love and grace that even though they may not agree with my political decisions
Yeah.
or my political statements, they really understand that I am there for them, that I am a servant leader, and that and I know, Manny, especially working with your mom on those domestic violence victims. Gosh, it, there are so many people, although we focus on those that are victims of crime,
Right.
sometimes they get killed, they get permanently damaged, but those that get out and make it, I know there's people that know that your family has made a difference for them.
So along those lines, then, I mean, because Daniel asked, "How are
Mhm.
you doing?" Right. So then let me reframe that
Okay.
with the weight of the world, right,
Mhm.
on your shoulders, right, with the weight of this 2+ million population of constituents, right, and this multi-billion-dollar budget,
Right.
and then you lift your head and you look in DC and things are goofy there, and things are goofy in Austin, and then you've got this terrible flood. We're just down the street,
Mhm.
I mean, families are in absolute crisis, and then you every once in a while you open the newspaper here and you see horrible crisis here, and people look to you as the pinnacle leader. How do you carry that weight around? Where do you put it when you check in at home with Rachel and the kids? Because I think people look to the leaders and don't really understand that what they're looking at is a human being also, right? And how does the human being Peter Sakai handle that pressure?
Well, and you've hit it. And Rachel, even though I'll say that that sense of gratitude and appreciation kind of puts me on a high. Yeah, I mean, when you go home, sometimes, and Rachel's has indicated, and that, Manny, you know that well from your domestic violence. We're exposed to the trauma, to the toxicity, to the profanity, so to
Right.
speak, of what's going on. And so sometimes Rachel will say, "Yeah, I can see that you're still carrying the weight of those issues." And that's called vicarious trauma.
Hmm.
And so it's not a matter of, well, is that worth it? No. The thing is, that's the responsibility. That's the price I have to give back in order to do what I'm doing. In order for me to make these changes or to be providing the leadership or to give guides, just to give a helping hand, I've got to carry the weight of people's problems. I've got to be able to listen. So there's a sense of the pressure, the trauma is always going to be there. I think I've done my very best. I still go see a personal trainer. Rachel
Good.
makes sure that I eat right. We're always mindful of taking a break. Now, one of the advantages of running for county judge, as opposed, for some reason, of course, I thought taking my kids and my family to all these pretty conferences, that judicial conferences, counted. They didn't. And so one of the things Rachel says, you will promise me to take. So last year, we went on a 2.5 week cruise to Alaska,
Oh, great.
which, and so there's a sense that running for county judge and being kind of awakened of, okay, you're going to do this job, but you got to give something back, especially now. So I know that the Disney cruise with my grandchildren, and of course, I don't know if y'all are there, but with grandchildren, guess who's going to pay for everybody,
Well, yeah,
and who has the ability to do that?
yeah.
So that's the reward. So, yeah, can I say I'm happy every? No, sometimes I'm beat. I am dead tired and beaten down. And Danny, with some of the complex issues, just a lot of frustration of having to deal with the politics, the bureaucracy, more importantly, the bureaucracy of our system. Why can't people all kind of do the right thing?
So on those, just to kind of keep it going a little bit, just
Mhm.
practically speaking, day to day, you've got those long-term rewards. You go on a vacation, unplug with your family, but day to day, at the end of that day, when it's not fun,
Yeah.
and you've strung 4 or 5 days of that in
Mhm.
a row, what is it? I mean, what do you do, if anything, to check out for
That's
five
why
minutes and give
I
yourself?
call my personal trainer and say, "Hey, run me through a hard ass program, man. Run me,"
Just
and so that it clears. And I have to say this: it's something COVID kind of interrupted, but I used to go, and I'm going to give a plug to my buddy Jesse James Leha. I was a regular. I was going 2 to 3 times a week to his boxing gym. Oh, there's nothing
Yeah,
more.
have you ever boxed?
There is nothing more rewarding.
It's brutal.
It's
Yeah.
brutal, but you come out, your head is clear.
Yeah.
yeah.
You thought you had a bad day? Well, get in the ring with Jesse James Lyon, let him knock you around a few times, and you learn, oh,
It
that,
seems like nothing. 2 minute round.
no, it's
3 minute
exhausting.
round.
and it's forever.
About a minute and a half into it. Yeah.
Wait, you did a boxing thing,
No,
didn't you?
no. It was like a training class once. And I
Okay.
thought, how hard could this be?
No,
Oh,
2 minutes.
Well, then
is
you
an
need to go
eternity.
sign up for those boxing matches with the real estate council.
Guaranteed it would be sold out.
Now, your predecessor, Nelson Wolf, got in the ring at that real estate council
I
fight
understand
night.
that was with Roy Terracina, and I'll just leave it at that. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Now, is there a chance that we'll ever see a Peter Sakai in the ring? Or
Heck no. I was gonna say another word, but I'm gonna leave it. Heck no.
Hey, so you look around the way I imagine. Well, I used to look around when I was in office at other people who were
Mhm.
elected officials having a tough time at it, right? Because the world was just dealing them terrible cards. And you know the guy I've been keeping my eye on these last few days is the county judge over in Kerr County. And I've just been sending that guy as many good vibes as I possibly can because I mean sometimes the world just decides to give you the worst
That's
cards, right? And have you gotten a chance to talk to the judge up there and your counterpart? And what advice you got for the guy? And how's he doing?
Same thing, Manny. I reached out to him. Bear County immediately kicked into
Yeah.
emergency gear in support of emergency management support staff. We did our what we call emergency service districts. Our firefighters out in the rural unincorporated areas provided search and rescue through boats and manpower. We've sent water supplies from day one, and we continue to do so. And I reached out to him that first day after, and I have texted and just had some minimal conversation because I don't want him to be concerned about returning my calls. But I have reached out to him. He has expressed his appreciation that Bear County has stepped up to help Kerr County, and we're there to help any of our neighbors, knowing that we had Travis County also. So I reached out to Judge Andy Brown. I've reached out to all the rural counties, to Medina, Judge Lutz, Judge Coote in Atascosa, Judge Whitman and Wilson, to make sure they're okay. And so I, as a county judge, also want to make sure that we understand we got to take care of our neighbors.
Yeah, but
And we can't. And so, but in regards to Judge Kelly, same thing. Just I'm there. Let me know what you need, and you're in my prayers.
I'll tell you the most impactful, important phone calls that I've ever received are when my counterparts from somewhere else who have nothing to do with what I'm dealing with at that moment pick up the phone and just call me and say, "Hey, I'm watching you. You're doing all right, right? Checking in on you. Keep up the good work. Be strong, right?" And I imagine that Judge Kelly must really appreciate just you having called him.
And I'm sure there'll be a more formal way that he'll express
Yeah.
his gratitude. But you're right. Understanding as a district court judge, same thing, man. I had some tough cases, and colleagues calling me. I think you even called me one time on certain cases that the press wasn't being very nice to me, and so that's a reminder that we need not only as electeds, we just need to do that as human decency.
Yeah.
We need to do that as neighbors. We need to do that for our own families. Sometimes we forget to call our own families and tell them how much we appreciate and what do they need. So it's a reminder. Let's not wait till tragedy or disaster hits before we help each other. We should we should be more mindful of that, and that's another podcast. I'm sure how we can be better.
I'm writing down this list of podcasts. For them. The first one we've got is was it what I really think of you, right? And then the other one is how to be more mindful. You're gonna be co-hosting all these.
Your time on the bench obviously
Yeah.
influenced a lot of your decision making
Mhm.
today. Influences still today. A couple of things jumped out at me earlier when we were talking about sort of your personal life, your
Mhm.
story. Being a said something along the lines of being a minority in a minority community. So
Right.
being Asian in South Texas. That's very interesting to me, and I never thought about it that way. Certain element of that while you're at UT, but now you're in San Antonio, Bexar County.
But let me go back.
Similar.
Let me go back to grade school, elementary school, middle school, high school. I was teased and I was taunted. You could even say I was bullied. And part of that was, and I don't know if it was a racism because it was predominantly by Hispanic kids who made fun of me. And I'll give you a little story. They used to always call me Chino,
El
which is
Chino.
which is Chinese, Spanish for Chinese, and I get pissed off because I'm Japanese.
Right.
And so I tell them, "Yo soy japonés." So
Mhm.
if you're going to tease me, call me by my right ethnicity,
Right.
my right nationality. But it was tough growing up. And then they had these ditties, these poems of Chino, Chino, that, and I'm sure they're probably saying the same little ditties
Yeah.
that they said back then. So just to get back to you, I mean, and it's just a mindfulness that boys will be boys, but we've gotten to where we're very mean to each other, especially I think kids. That's the issue I have with the new generation. Have we really changed in that sense of being more accepting? So a lot of tough questions. Like really, I mean, even though these are stories, there raises a lot of issues of how we are as a
Does
as
that
a
help
nation.
you today, being in San
Yes,
Antonio, where you're an Asian in a majority Hispanic community?
I'm very sensitive, even though some people say, "Well, you're trying to be politically correct." No, there are times when we need to be mindful to make sure we use the right terminology, that we reference people the way they want to be referenced. We've gotten to the cancel culture where, oh, no. I know how it feels when you feel ostracized or you're excluded. And so that gets a little deep and profound, Daniel.
Yeah. So I mean, to get a little deep and profound on you, I mean,
Mhm.
that you're in this public facing, like I said, pinnacle leadership spot where people hang on your every word, right? And the one thing that folks don't know about you because you're so often in the news,
Mhm.
right? Is that you're very careful with how you speak because you're aware of who's listening and you want to make sure that nothing interferes with your message. But what people don't know is the Peter Sakai behind the camera, behind the microphone, right? And um, y- you're like me in many ways, right?
Mhm. I
You
am.
and I both get away with murder with some of the things that we say because we're jovial and we say them, gregariously. And
Our
you were
wives,
asking me
our
earlier,
wives
like,
would
how
say,
can you say something
our
like
wives would agree with
that,
that.
right? But the reality is that there's a certain um, uh, restriction placed on public officials, right? Do you feel like you're wearing a straitjacket and you can't speak your mind sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think that's the responsibility as elected official because we see now in real time, Manny, we do have elected officials that do not speak with a filter.
Right.
And and I respect that they speak their truth, that it's their feelings, but they're kind of also weaponizing. And it's on both sides of the fence, Manny. I'm not saying it's this side or that side. It's basically this warfare that we have created in our community, and it's not good for us.
It's
And
meanness,
it's not, it's
right?
a meanness, and it's not good for our children, and it's certainly not good for my concern, and the reason why I continue as elected official, I want to know what world I'm leaving for my grandkids. I'm going to hope my children have learned the best they can from me, but what about my grandkids?
Well, I mean, then tying this in, you mentioned, when lawyers would call you and say, "I know you had a difficult case, right?" Or, "Judge, you did all right on that decision," or "You really
Or you
screwed that
blew
one
it
up,"
up.
right? There was a case that you handled
Mhm.
very early on in my, over the last 8 years. It was the paid sick leave case. Remember
Yes,
that one, Dan?
sir.
The business community was watching it intently. And just to set the scene here for you, city council got a lot of pressure to pass an ordinance saying that all employees in San Antonio would be allowed to take certain breaks, and they'd have to, get paid for those breaks during sick leave. Sounds perfectly reasonable and fine. Business community came out and said, that's the jurisdiction of the state. Your cities shouldn't get into the business of regulating employers. The other side of the argument was like, well, look, the state's not doing it, right? And our last hope is for the municipalities to handle it. And so the city council passed that ordinance, and sure enough, it
landed in my
to court,
courtroom.
and it went to your courtroom. Now, you had a political hot potato thrown in your lap, right? So you're a judge, you're an elected official judge who was already eyeballing that county court seat that you're in today, right? Tell me about that moment in time. How did you deal with those politics? And then talk to us a little bit about the meanness surrounding that.
Well, I'm glad you raised that because that was one of what I call my seminal moments in my political career from this perspective. I knew the minute I got assigned that case, and I'll say this, a lot of judges did not want to hear that case.
Yeah.
And when it came to me, I was a senior judge at that time on the civil side. I believe I was the local administrative judge. So I was the chief judge. And judges were saying, I'm busy, pass it. And finally, when it came to me, I said, well, does anybody else want to hear this case? Judge, you're the last one. Which meant we could have pushed it to a visiting judge,
Right.
which is sometimes happens. And I said, you know what? Give it to me. One is it needed to have a decision made. And you're right. I knew it was a hot potato because obviously, it was elected officials, the city council, who wanted it by majority. I personally believe that we should have paid leave.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a Texas Supreme Court on point, and the legislature had already ruled that local governments should stay in their lanes and they need to only do what they're allowed to do. Don't encroach on the state legislative powers, which is what the fundamental issue was. So from a legal point, easy decision, Manny.
Mm-hmm.
Although I struggled because I know, oh boy. So I took my time. I gave everybody, we went like 2 weeks. I could have just said ruled, it was a summary judgment, I think.
That's right.
I could have said rule and go. I said, no, let's give everybody a chance. So we had high-powered lawyers. Ricardo Cedillo was in the room.
He's high-powered?
Oh, don't go there, Manny.
Never heard of it.
And we had
He's going to burn my house
we
down.
had high-powered civil rights groups that were promoting for the court to stop, or not to enjoin, but to keep this paid leave ordinance to keep going forward.
Yeah.
So they were fighting for the injunction that the business community. So the legal decision wasn't a difficult one. What was it? I wanted to make sure that people were heard. So I didn't cut it off. I said, okay, as you know, Manny, sometimes judges go, I heard enough. I don't want to hear it. Here's my ruling. And you're like, well, hold it. You haven't allowed me to put on my evidence. Well, you already ruled, go.
Right.
No, I gave everybody their day in court. I even withheld ruling so that I took it in advisement. And actually, I spent more time researching to say, is there any wiggle room in this law? But Manny, and I think you even, I remember you stayed in a position that the rule of law said that I had to grant this injunction and stop it. And so one of the things that I did was, after I looked at everything, tried to see if there was any maneuverability on this, there wasn't. I said, I granted it. I granted the injunction. And obviously, it was around Thanksgiving time. And so I ruled, and I thought, well, it's Thanksgiving. Maybe the backlash, or maybe people will be too busy eating turkey and I won't get credit. No, there were street protests.
That's right.
And I got to say this funny story for the community. I love my community because one of the protesters had a sign that said, because it was Thanksgiving, it said, Sakai, no pie for Sakai.
Ooh, that's
and I went, wow.
That's just me.
Yeah, but I was like, what a beautiful poetic statement. It rhymes. And so the thing is, Daniel, I've learned I had to make the call. It was based on the rule of law. Ultimately, it was all affirmed by the Fourth Court of Appeals. It was affirmed by the Texas Supreme Court. And really, it allowed the city to move forward. Y'all moved on. Obviously, the city council told the business community, you better take care of your employees, which I know is still an issue that is still being discussed even now. But the bottom line, as a judge, and that's what I bring as a county judge, I look at things from a rule of law. Does the law? Now, Manny, you know this, and this is another discussion. Bad cases make bad law.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you, and I think you make that statement in the city council, or you have, where you say, be careful what you do because you're going to make bad law. Because what happens is the Texas legislature will then react to whatever actions city council.
Boy, did they react.
And we still are struggling down there. You know that from your job, that the legislature are trying to restrict local governments. And that is a big issue now. State government, federal government putting laws that tell us locally, this is how you're going to rule, and not give us any discretion. To me, that's very troubling, that as an elected official that knows my local community the best of everybody, I got somebody in either Washington, D.C. or Austin telling me, no, you can't do that. And that's what's happening now.
So, Daniel, did for this decision, I don't know if you remember, but when he ran for county judge, I think you had some opposition out there reminding everybody that they didn't like your paid sick leave decision.
It was brought out in the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're the sweetheart of the Democratic Party. So
I
I
don't
think
know
they got
about
over
that.
it.
I
right?
hope so.
So are there examples of, that you mentioned earlier, someone that was in front of you when you were on the bench, and granted their adoption, the reverse? I mean, a bad story at the grocery store?
Yeah.
saying,
No.
"You didn't do this."
No,
or paid sick
no,
leave.
I'll tell you what.
People get in your face like
Diamond
that?
Alexander Washington, which was a campaign issue. It's a child that I returned to its mother in our child abuse children's court. The parties, CASA, the children's attorney, everybody, the district attorney, the parents' attorney, all agreed that this baby should be returned to its mother because she had done all the work she needed to do to show that she was a responsible parent. I returned that child by agreement, so it was an uncontested hearing. Oh, as I recall, it was in 2003. Within 6 weeks of me returning the child dies.
Mm-hmm.
Mom gets charged with murder. She gets convicted of murder. That case nearly ruined me. Talk about the pressures, the weight, the guilt. Jesus, did I mess up? One of the positive things, and this is a lesson I learned and a lesson I tell other electeds or anybody who's willing to listen today in this podcast, I took accountability for what I did. And what I did was I was told, don't do it, but I did it because I wanted to. I said, you know what? I want an independent study, evaluation of what I did as a judge. But I also want Child Protective Services to be evaluated. I want the district attorney's office to be evaluated. I want the court system to be evaluated. I want everybody to be evaluated. If I screwed up, the buck stops with me, which is how I feel as county judge. Buck stops with me. And so that case came out to show there were flaws with Child Protective Services. They didn't follow up. They didn't ask the mom to follow up after the child was returned. There was supposed to be intensive review because there was always fear that this mom would hurt the child, which she ultimately got convicted and sentenced to life for. So that was a case where there was an outpouring. Fellow judges said, hey, don't beat yourself up.
Right.
Judge Garcia was one. Judge Morales, Judge Specious, hey, don't, because I nearly quit.
And it happened
I
again.
nearly quit.
You remember Saul Cassab also had a pretty horrible case.
They
right?
happen, unfortunately, happened too many times more.
Yeah.
But this one got high profile because I chose, as an elected judge back then, let's investigate. Let's figure out what happened. So, when we have these disasters, the lesson I would tell electeds, don't hide from it or try to hide it. Put it out in the open. Let the chips fall where they may. If there's fault, then let's try to fix it as opposed to continue to blame. Because that's unfortunately what we do as elected. Well, it's the city's fault. No, it's the county's fault. But we don't fix it, Manny.
Well,
And
there
so
was
that's the reason why sometimes we need, as you know, as a media, we need a third party come in here and assess the blame or responsibility, but let's come up with solutions.
there's a gentleman, you may have met him, named Jim Wiseman, mentor of mine, was a former Toyota guy, government relations. And you know what he tells me? He goes, Manny, I've come to realize towards the end of my career that in this business of government and policy, and having to make decisions, you need to bring three things to the table. One is an understanding that you may get it wrong, right? Two is an understanding that you still got to wake up and go back to work tomorrow morning, right? And deal with more difficult decisions. And three, you got to be able to look honestly at others, but also at yourself in the mirror, and and be okay that the only answer sometimes is it seemed like a good idea at the time.
That's right.
Right. And that has to be good enough,
Right.
because, if you question, every decision, and if you question, yourself too much, you end up doing what way too many leaders don't do. And that is, you end up just not deciding and kicking
Right.
things down the road, right? Or splitting the baby and then not really doing your job. And your job today and way back then when you were on the bench was to be the decider, right?
Right.
And
Because
that's hard.
what that lesson taught me, Daniel, was never, ever to be afraid to make a decision. And that's what I would tell electeds. I would tell people that are just running for office, whether it's at the school level or at the college level. When you are a leader, you must make decisions, but you got to make the best decisions, and you got to do your homework, which means you got to do the hard work.
Yeah.
Read, investigate, get people who have knowledge to give you so that you make the best decisions. And I think it served me well, because even though I nearly quit, it made me a better judge. And I think it makes me a very good county judge.
I think it makes you a good grandfather too.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yes.
because you pass those lessons on.
That's
to your
that's
grandkids.
exactly what I try to do, and I try to pass it to our community, that to young people. Hey, you know, life can be hard, and you're going to get knocked down. You're going to make mistakes.
So we're running up
All
against
right.
our end time. I know that Daniel, you had some final questions that you wanted to sort of throw at Peter, and
All right.
I don't even know what he's gonna ask you. To tell you.
Rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Quick answers. We'll
Okay.
answer them.
All right.
As an example, this one's just a practice. You don't have to answer it. Do you genuinely think Manny's jokes are funny? You don't have to answer it. Just something like that.
I refuse.
Lie.
I
Give us
refuse.
the example.
I refuse to answer that question.
Just an example.
Mhm.
We'll start light, and then a
Okay.
quick shout out to your leadership on the baseball station.
Yeah.
We'll start light, and then we'll get into the fast pitches. Go to breakfast taco in standard San Antonio Bexar
Ooh,
County.
which one?
What's your
What?
go to breakfast taco?
Potato, egg, and cheese, flour. Even though I'm not supposed to eat flour.
Chorizo and egg at Taqueria Data Point on De Zavala. Oh my gosh, that
Location.
place is so.
Okay, you want Taco
Yeah.
House on San Pedro?
All right, you
Bake just good old bacon and egg anywhere.
anywhere?
Talk about your kids, and of course your grandkids. I have a 6-year-old, 9-year-old. Shout out to Anna and Joaquin. So we have a lot of kid food going on.
Mhm.
We're on the early stages. PB&J,
Mm-hmm.
grape jelly, or any other fruit jelly.
Honey.
Honey.
Wow.
Mhm.
So PB&J and honey.
Yeah, PB&J and honey.
Wow.
I want honey on there.
I'm a grape guy, but I'm really picky about the peanut butter. It's got to be that honey flavored peanut butter. I don't like that plain stuff anymore. It's,
Fancy.
yeah, no, I got.
Mm.
I think I've earned
Yeah, I think so.
fancy peanut butter. Yeah.
Great. Everything else is just a sandwich. Yeah. Favorite fiesta event.
It's the favorite. I've come to love the King William Fair, because as I'm on all the parades, that one we just get in a little vehicle and we zip through and we're done. The other ones, sometimes it can be very hot, humid, and sometimes very long. So I love my King William Fair
Pooch
parade.
parade. You get to see hundreds and hundreds of dogs all in their fiesta outfits, and some of them even wear guayaberas, which I love, by the way.
Well,
What do you
as
got?
a fellow Rafael Consejo member, you're going to be in trouble because it has to be Fiesta de los Reyes.
I'm sorry, man, but if those guys started bringing puppies to the party, I'd like it even more.
Favorite musician?
Favorite musician. Okay, I gotta go. I'm a golden oldies. I go back to. I love my Neil Diamond for the songs and the ballads he's written. Some of those songs resonate for me. Some of my favorite songs. My favorite song is "I Am." I said.
This changes year to year, but right now I'll say this year it's a band called Scary Pockets. It's this
You-
great band of funky jazz musicians, and then every song is sung by a different friend of theirs, and it's all covers, right? So on the way over here, I was just listening to a cover of "Creep" by Radiohead,
Oh,
and
man.
in jazz funk style. It's fantastic. Scary Pockets.
That tells you my gender. I'm like, what? Who's that?
You might know this from South Texas days, but mine, Luis Miguel.
Ooh,
yeah.
yes, sir.
Can't go wrong there.
Can't go wrong.
First concert that you went
First
to.
concert. Oh my gosh! It was back at the Drum.
The
in
Drum?
Yeah, the Drum. That's actually been knocked down because I got the Moody Center over there. Oh God, which concert? God, Chicago, and when they were in their prime.
Wow.
Run DMC in El Paso. Mhm.
Ooh.
There you go.
Back in the listen, Ernest is laughing over there.
Garth Brooks at the Dome.
That was your first one
That
ever.
was my first
Wow.
one ever. I
Wow.
was in high school. Last book that you had
The
a
last
chance
book.
to
Oh,
read.
my book right now is Michael Lewis, and it's a book. It's the title. Go. Michael Lewis is the one that did the was it Moneyball, The Blind Side, and The Big Short.
Mhm.
So he has these really interesting historical, and right now he's got a book. It's called The Government, and what it is stories of government that have helped people, and it's been so affirming for me. Like
Wait, what's it called?
it's Michael Lewis. It's just,
Okay.
he just put it out. It's the something government, and it's just
Look
stories.
that up.
It's a stories about just the unsung heroes
Yeah.
of people who have made life-saving acts or policies that we don't give credit to. And then we live in this today's world of how screwed up government is. No, I think we do a damn good job, at least with Bear County.
Certainly
I'll
better
leave it.
than other countries.
I'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
I just finished reading a great book called "Call of the Siren" by by Chris Hayes from MSNBC, and the whole book is, what is attention? How do we get it from other people? How do we give it? And then how is it being weaponized? How is our attention becoming a commodity that other people are selling? And how to really sort of think post-COVID about how we are gifting our attention away when we ought not to be.
A Man in Full by Tom Wolfe. It published in the 80s. I started it like a decade ago, put it down, and then it got turned into a Netflix
Wait, this is the
series.
one where he ends up being a stoic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then picked it up and read it. I wanted to finish reading it before I saw the Netflix series.
Man, that turned me on
It's about a
to
real estate developer,
Mhm.
and there's attorneys and government.
Yeah.
I mean, all
yeah.
the boxes that.
But it's all but the entire book, like it meshes in Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, and it's
Oh,
a
my.
book about stoicism. And so you end up really becoming an expert, or at least proficient enough in stoicism, so where you've read a great fictional novel and you end up a little smart at the end of it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. So now we're again getting into the fastball.
Okay.
Shout out to your leadership on baseball there. Elephant in the room, Spurs.
Mhm.
What's your favorite color scheme logo? Silver and black or the Fiesta blue, pink, orange?
Silver, black, traditional.
100%. Stop screwing around with something that's not broken.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Believe it or not, I had to game time decision. I left it till right now. I'm gonna go with blue, pink, orange.
Okay.
That's you like that?
Yeah, I do.
Look, I don't dislike it, except that, when my Spurs
Yeah.
are, away and they're up against, the Lakers or the Heat or whatever, I don't want them wearing teal and pink. I want them out there looking scary,
Well, I go back to the Bruise Brothers that played in Hemisphere Arena there.
There you go.
That was
That's
a long time ago.
Silver and black.
See, that's what I'm saying. You know, people have to always remember where they come from, and they have to remember history so that we don't repeat the stupid mistakes we've made over and over.
So look, the way we end the show. Oh, so you got one more.
I have
Oh,
one
okay.
more. 3 words that you would use to describe Bexar County.
Oh
A collaborative community, a compassionate community, and a community that cares. So compassionate, caring.
Collaborative.
yeah. I think this is a community that is wise. I really do. I think that we have a lot of wisdom to give, not to just each other, but the rest of the world. And if
Right.
more people did things the Bexar County way, I think this world would be a lot better.
Totally
Number
agree.
2, I think that there's no place like home. I think that we're very authentic, right? Unlike, I mean, there's nothing like what this mix of cultures and music and history, right? And dreams and problems. And then the last one, I would tell you that I think that we are a brave people. We are really brave, and you know when challenges and catastrophe hurdle our ways, you'll always find Bexar County and San Antonio, not just facing those challenges, but also offering to help other people
Right.
next door and even far away. How's that?
Great. So unfair because I got to think about it.
Yeah, you gotta answer your own question.
I'd go with comfortable, which read into it whatever you want. Could cut both ways. Possibility
Mhm.
and evolving.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Guys, we've come up to the end of the show. So the way we end this is I ask you guys for a call to action. So, in other words, tell my listeners, tell the people out there what you'd like them to do. Right? Be better doing this way, or stop doing this, or or think about X, Y, or Z. But this is your call to action. Take it away. What would you like people to do?
I said this to a group of young students at UTSA. I need you to engage. I need you to get involved in the political system. I need you to care. I need you to help me as a county judge. So engage. Let's go. We can change this. So, although there are issues in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
there may be issues in Austin, Texas, let's take care of things here in Bexar County. So, let's get going.
I'd say slow down and listen to one another before you start talking, and certainly before you've made up your mind on the issue.
Here's mine. And the one of the guys behind the camera today is a fellow named Ryan, 17 years old. Ryan, is that right? Yeah. And we were all giving him advice before before the show started. But Ryan, I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna tell the rest of the world that the secret to success is really easy. Show up on time, impress your boss, always tell the truth, and if you screwed something up or broke something, clean it up. And think about if every one of the world's leaders, or if just some of them were to do that, I think this would be a pretty fantastic way of reforming the world. Guys, Guayabera Conversations. I hope that we delivered on the promise.
This was a
fun?
blast.
Yeah,
This was a blast. I enjoyed it on a Friday afternoon.
Where'd you get it? Tell me about that
Dos
shirt.
Carolinas.
Dos Carolinas. Where's yours from?
I don't know.
And then, Manny, can I make this admission
Yes,
for
sir.
your podcast?
Yeah.
I love the Pelaez family.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
I love Mama Marta. I love Dr. Raul.
Yes.
I love your sister.
Thank you. Thank you so
I'm
much.
still figuring out about you.
The jury's out. The jury's out.
But I love you.
You're not alone.
And I'll say this.
Thank you
I'll
so
say this on the record. I voted for you.
Thank you, my man. I
about that?
appreciate that. Thank you.
I say that.
Thank you. Thank you. You want to remain silent? You want to
That's
remain
all-
silent?
that's all-
You're taking the fifth?
That's all you're going to get out of me.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Judge Peter Sakai, thank you. It's been a joy. More Guayabera Conversations coming up, folks.
If you like the show, and if you want to be a part of these conversations as a sponsor, give us a call, write to us. We're always looking for partners and people who want to advance a conversation about authenticity.